Okay, we're going to get started. I know that I have done this on a public holiday, which is very unfortunate because I've had a lot of you tell me that you're away for the public holiday. So I think we're going to have a very small group today, and that's okay. So first of all, I'm just going to introduce myself. For those of you who are catching up on the recording, my name is Donna. I am I'm just going to turn that off for a second. Yep. Okay. So my name is Donna. I am a mindset and business coach, and I geek out on the code of human behavior. I have used this in my coaching. I've taught it to my clients, and it has been a game changer to how they coach. And some of the things that they pick up on in coaching that they never picked up on before. Oh, it's still coming up for some reason. Don't know why that is. Anyway, so yeah, I'm really excited to share this with you guys today. So just a little bit about me, just for those of you who are catching up, who are live or catching up on the recording. I have been coaching since 2014 and full-time in my business since 2018. My business has allowed me to go and travel the world and whatnot, so it's been pretty phenomenal. And a big part of my work has been helping other people to do the same thing, so helping other people to build online businesses and having them have the same sort of freedom. And from that, there's been, some phenomenal results for them. So I'm going to jump into things now that you kind of have a gauge for who I am. And we're going to share a little bit about the code of human behavior. So before we do get into things, I just want to set the tone for today and create some standards and goals for our learning. So the first one is lean in and ask questions. If I'm in the middle of explaining like a model or something like that, I may wait until the end before I come back to answer any of your questions. But definitely do ask questions as they come up, because, it's the best way that you're going to learn, and it's better than me kind of talking to myself for the next kind of 60 to 90 minutes, right? The next thing is, there's people who kind of come to classes like this and they like take all the notes down and then they walk away and that's kind of it. They've got like a million notes but they have nothing to do with it. And I really want to encourage you guys to take notes and then go and utilize these skills. Like, go and be a great coach from the skills that we learned today, because I'm not holding anything back. I'm being really open with all the stuff that I'm teaching today, and it's the sort of stuff that I would teach my one-to-one clients. So I'm being very open. I want you guys to go use this. And, I can't kind of say to you guys, like, you have to go use this or anything like that. But you guys are all adults, you're all running your own businesses and all the rest of it. Like, you guys know kind of the difference between being a lifelong learner and actually going and taking the action. So I trust that you guys will do that with today's information. Just admitting people in. What we're going to cover today is we're going to learn a couple of the models. So I'm going to teach you guys 4 models in total today, because I don't want to overwhelm you. There's so many I could teach you. We're going to learn how to apply the models so that you can start to read clients. We're going to learn how you can start to learn to predict behavior through understanding this. We're going to learn how to apply the models to your sales and marketing, and we're going to look at how you can apply the models to structure a program. And then the last thing that we'll leave off on is I'm going to share a little bit with you guys about the Crack the Code program for those of you who enjoy today and want to know a little bit more. And I want to be really transparent about that up front, that, I will share a little bit of that at the end. So my promise to you guys today is that you will walk out of today's masterclass with so many new pieces of information that you can go and use straight away. Like, this isn't one of those things where I'm just going to be like teaching you something and you kind of go, oh yeah, okay, like I have to buy the thing to get to know the thing or whatever. No, I'm going to be teaching you some stuff that you can actually use. So I'm really excited about that. So if you are on live, just pop in like, hi, where are you from? Just so we can kind of get a gauge like where you guys are from in the world. And I'll just pop my chat box up. Hi from NZ. I'm currently in New Zealand as well. Hello from New Zealand. For the next couple of months anyway, and then we're moving to Bali. From Sydney, from Melbourne, beautiful. Oh, familiar faces, Danielle and Di. How are you? Beautiful. And we've got somebody else on here as well. I'm in the north, I'm in the south, in the very cold south. I know it's been a while since I've had some meetings with you guys. Hey, it's good to see you guys. Melbourne, beautiful. I'm originally from Melbourne, so there we go. We've got something in common. So I was saying at the start of this, I put this masterclass on a public holiday, and I had no idea that I did that. And then I had a whole heap of people go, "Oh, I'm away." I'm like, "Oh shit, okay." So it might be a bit of a small intimate class for the live people, but that's probably a good thing for you guys anyway, because then you can ask me all your questions. All right, so I'm going to get started into things. So before we kind of jump into the models, I'm going to teach you 3 models and then we're going to start applying them. I want you to kind of look at it through 2 different filters. So the first filter, I want you guys to look at it as like through your own filter and like how it applies to you, because as you learn some of these things, and I find this with all of my Crack the Code clients, they always kind of say to me, "Oh, I thought I was coming to learn how to be a better coach, and I've done that, but then I've also learned a whole heap of stuff about myself along the way." So I really want you guys to kind of have the filter of like yourselves and then your clients as well, and how it applies to both. And you might even notice it in like family members or friends as well. I find that really interesting. So this is the first one we're going to go through. We're going to go through DISC. Now, I'll be really, really transparent with you guys. I'm not going to go into it in as much detail as I do on the program. And the reason for that is because I have a class that's like 20 minutes just on this one particular model. But I am going to go over it so that you've got kind of enough to really understand what this particular model is. We're going to go through 3 models, and then we're going to go have a bit of a play with the models and actually, you know, integrate them into your coaching. So the first one is the dominant. How many of you guys are familiar with DISC? But basically it's a personality profiling tool. And there are different kind of, there are primary and secondary one that you'll most likely have, right? So, and for some of you, you'll be unicorns like me. So for me, for instance, I'm a jester. So I'm the I, and then closely followed by the S and the C. For a lot of you, you'll just have like a primary one and a secondary one. So I'm going to go through them and what they are, and any questions that you have, just pop them in the chat box. So the first one is the dominant. So the dominant is the one who is very kind of future paced, like they're always looking out into the future, always like big picture people. So looking at the bigger chunk of things. I find with clients like this, typically I have to like chunk them down a little bit as they're like, as I'm coaching them, because they're always looking at the bigger picture. So, you know, for what purpose would you want that thing? You know, how would that thing actually really help your life? You know, like chunk them down a little bit. It's the same with the I energies. They're very high chunk as well. So I'm high I, so I'm very high chunked as well. And I have to very much like break things down for myself and be conscious of that as a coach when I'm coaching clients. And that's really interesting for you guys to kind of know as well. Like, if you're a highly chunked person, then you have to be very conscious of it for yourself and then for your clients too. So it kind of works on 2 levels. So with the D energy, they're highly chunked. They're very future focused. They won't think about like what happened back in the past or anything. They'll be thinking about the future. They just want to get shit done. They don't want the details about things. They tend to, so a way that you can tell if somebody is a dominant energy is in how they dress. And for each of these people, you'll be able to tell it in how they dress. For a dominant energy, they tend to wear very bold colors. So you might have somebody who's like in a red or a royal blue or a green, or you know what I mean? Like it'll be very like block type colors. And you might even notice it in their marketing colors as well, like how they tend to market reflects who they are in their DISC energy. So that's another way in which you can tell with these sorts of people. They want dot points, they don't want all the details. And when they're in a high pressure situation, the worst thing that you can try and do is explain all the reasons why. They're like, just give me the dot points, don't give me the fluff of anything, you know, in an email or something like that. They're the type of people that you'd be like, hey, this is the thing, that's it, and you move on to the next, right? With the I energies are very much the same. Like I was saying before, they're big picture people. They see out into the future. So they're always looking for what's going to be happening in the future. They're very connection driven. They're very jovial. They're the sorts of people that you walk into a room and they'll notice, like, just say there's a group of you or something like that, and there's somebody standing over in the corner over there on their own. They'll notice that that person is standing there in the corner on their own, and they'll go, hey, come here, come join, you know, the group with us, kind of thing. Like they're that sort of person. their connection-driven nature can sometimes override other things in their life. So what I mean by that, and this is like a personal experience that I certainly had when it came to business, was when I first started my business out, and even at different times along my journey as I got more and more successful, what had happened was I had to refigure out what it was to have connection with others, because if my business was going to put my connection with others at risk, then I would choose my connection with others over my business unconsciously, right? And so that created problems for me because I wanted to go to the next level, but then I was so driven by connection that, that would hinder kind of me going up to that next level of being. So that's really something important to know for Jester energies who are running a business, whether it be a coaching business or whether you have coaching clients, because they could be hindering their business. And a lot of I energies do this because they prefer, or unconsciously, they seek that connection over their business. So that's really important. The really cool thing about I energies when it comes to business is that they're so good at creating community. So that's, for me, I know is one of my strengths. I can get a community of people who don't know each other, and by the end of it, they're all really good friends and they're working with each other and blah, 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 blah. So that's the really cool thing about an I energy. The S energies. The S energy, I want you to think is like the mother archetype. So I don't know if you guys have ever worked in, like, I used to work in this in a legal office before I became a coach and went full time into that. And there was this one lady who was really, really nurturing, and you'd kind of go to her for like all the mothery type things, or she'd be the one who brought cookies into the office and that sort of thing. Like, she's very, very nurturing. This energy, again, when it comes to coaching, it's a beautiful energy to have as a coach because you can really provide a safe and beautiful space for your clients. It can also be something that sometimes holds people back because they get too nurturing and forget the balance of them being a coach and also having that nurturing energy. So that's something to be very, very aware of when you're coaching. The S energy is more past assurance based. So what will happen is they will look for things in the past as evidence for things that they can do in the future. So that's really important to note with them, because they'll be going, like, if you were to ask them a coaching question, for example, it'll be like, so where did you do this in the past? And they'll quickly come up with a response. They'll be like, oh, I did this when I got my first job or my license or whatever. They'll get really excited about that because they'll find evidence as to where they did that before. Whereas if you asked a D or an I the same question, they'll be like, oh, I don't know, I can't remember. And you almost have to prompt them like, oh, well, what about with your first job? Did you do it then? They'll be like, oh, yeah, I did it, because you've prompted them, right? So it's very, very different with your S and C energies versus your D and I energies because of that past assurance and future assurance based filters. With the C energies are the professor archetypes. They are very conscientious. They like to go by the rules. They like to know things in detail. They want to make sure they've crossed all their T's and dotted all their I's. It's a bit of a slower energy, like the S energy, because they are so conscientious. And the benefit to having people like this in your team, or, if you're working in a team environment, is that they will actually make sure that we haven't missed anything. Whereas the D's and the I's are so future-based that they will sometimes miss things. So this is the really cool thing about having a C energy, around you. They're always looking for the problem though with the C energies, right? So when you're coaching them, sometimes the thing that can come up is like really pulling them out of the mindset of problem, because they are very problem focused, and that's just a natural go-to for them. And it's not a bad thing at all. Like, it's something that can definitely be coached, because the more and more that you kind of coach them out of it, the less and less it becomes their default go-to. They'll know. So like, I've got C in me. I know that problem can come up. I also know that problem is my default. So I'm like, hang on a second, does this actually need to be a problem right now? Is it a genuine problem, or is it something that I can work with? Right. So when they've had a bit of coaching with you, they're going to know that. Now, I had mentioned kind of with the D energy, like, you can tell by how they're dressed. You can do the same with the I, S, and C as well. So an I energy, how you can tell that they're an I energy just by like how they're dressed, how they present themselves, is they'll wear lots of bright colors, they'll wear lots of patterns, they'll be a little bit funky kind of thing. With the S energies, it'll be very much like softer colors, so soft pinks or soft blues or whites and that sort of thing. They won't like anything that's too loud because it doesn't reflect that calmness of who they are as a person. And then with your C energies, they're likely to wear things like, I kind of often think of like grays and blues and like checkered shirts and has to match type thing, because it's that professor archetype. It has to be kind of perfect. So that is our disc energy, guys. There is a lot more to that, but I'm not going to go into it. That's kind of as much as I can squeeze into this amount of time. But I want you to keep all of these things in mind, because we're going to go and have a play with these things. So I hope you've been writing these things down. If you haven't, start writing things down now. Just have a pen and paper with you so that we can take these into what we're going to be doing in a second. The next one I'm going to teach you guys is the emotional age. So we've got 3 different ages. We've got our physical age, which is, you might be 30 years old, for example. You've got your mental age, which is your IQ, and then you've got your emotional age. So your emotional age is where you've been capped at in terms of your emotions. So what you've been allowed to feel and not allowed to feel, what's been safe or allowed within your home, right? So the emotional age, what I typically find is, say, for instance, you have a client who has a particular memory of something, right? So I know for myself, I had a particular memory of when my mum got really angry about something when I was like, I think 4 or 5 years old. And when I saw that, it was over the top anger, it was overexpressed anger. And what I mean by overexpressed is like, it was, it wasn't just anger, like I'm really pissed off about this and, letting that other person know that's a boundary violation or whatever it is. It was over the top expressed. Just letting somebody in. There we go. And so that in that moment made me think that anger was a bad thing. Anger is ugly. I don't want to be like that. So I'm not going to express anger, right? And so what that meant is, because anger, each emotion has a purpose behind it. So anger is about deserving, and it's about boundaries. Okay, so if you think about it, every time you get angry about something, it's because you felt like you deserved better in that moment. It's because somebody's violated your boundaries. So you felt really angry about that thing, right? Now, that had meant for me is that I had attracted, certain narcissistic relationships and that sort of thing, because I wasn't able to express myself. Because in order to express yourself, you need to know that you deserve to express yourself, right? And I didn't know that I deserved to express my needs because I wasn't expressing anger. Okay, so that emotion for me was suppressed at like 4 or 5 years old. I had to work on actually expressing what a healthy level of anger was in order to be able to express boundaries, in order to be able to express my needs with people and be able to have, let go of that people pleaser role and have functional, healthy relationships, right? And so this is what you'd be looking out for with your clients, is like noticing how they're playing out certain scenarios in life. How is, like, just say they have an event happen, fight with somebody or something like that. Did they go to anger and like quite explosive anger? Or, did they underexpress in that moment? And were they kind of sitting there going, oh, I can't say anything, rah, 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 and then walking away afterwards kind of going, oh, I should have said this, I should have said that. That's how you're going to know that your client has suppressed that particular emotion. Now, obviously, there's a whole heap of emotions that can be suppressed. I can't go through each and every one of them because there's a whole spectrum of them. But I'm going to use that one as the example because I feel like anger is one of the ones that comes up for a lot of people. Anger, sadness, and shame is probably, the biggest ones. So what you'd be looking for in your clients is just noticing, like, if they have suppressed anger, the likelihood is that they'll go to sadness, because we either usually express anger or sadness. So you have people on the opposite side of the spectrum where they will express sadness over anger, right? And that's definitely me, so I would express sadness over anger because as a child, I made anger mean that it was something bad, rather than recognizing it was something good. Since knowing this and working through this over the last few years, obviously that's very different for me now. But when I didn't know that, I wouldn't express anything about what I deserve, my boundaries or needs or anything like that. I just go straight to sadness. Okay, so, and the opposite happens as well. So people who express anger really well need to start accessing sadness to balance that out. Okay, but that's a whole nother conversation. So yeah, how you're going to identify that in your clients is basically just kind of noticing how these things play out in different scenarios as you know, they're telling you, you know, what's happened in a particular story or whatever. You're looking out for like, okay, so, you know, did they express anger? Did they express sadness? Did they express shame? Like, what did they express in that moment? And where was that capped for them at whatever age that was? And I'm just going to check the chat box. Hi, Donna, my apologies. I got caught up with cooking for the family. We'll be off camera. That's okay. Why do we need to balance out sadness and anger? Right. So if you use my example for a minute, it's a really good question, Di. If you use my example for a minute, my one was that I didn't express anger. So I expressed a lot of sadness. And so what that meant by me expressing sadness is that I didn't express my boundaries. I didn't express what I needed from things and all of that sort of thing. So I actually had to tap into what it was to express anger so that I could express boundaries and deserving and that sort of thing. So deserving meaning like expressing my needs. Because if you think that anger is about deserving, right? If I go to a restaurant and they give me a really crappy meal and it's, you know, it took half an hour to come out and that sort of thing, and I'm sitting there and I'm feeling really frustrated by it, but I'm not saying anything, how that ends up coming out is it comes out in an explosion. It's almost like the volcano that's sitting there, it's waiting, and then it erupts kind of thing. That was me back in the day because I didn't know how to express a healthy level of anger. I didn't know how to express my boundaries or what I deserved. So that's why I needed to express more of the anger, because I would go into sadness, I'd cry about things, but I wouldn't be able to actually have that conversation with people about how that wasn't okay. And then the opposite goes as well. So somebody who goes to explosive anger, what that can mean for them is it can mean that they don't connect with people properly. So it can mean that they end up, you know, yelling at their kids or yelling at their hubby or whatever it might be, because that's their go-to emotion. You know, that's the emotion that they know best over sadness. And the thing is like when we can't access, that's the word I'm looking for, when we can't access sadness, what happens is we lose compassion, because sadness is about loss and it's about compassion, right? So if you think about sadness as an emotion for a minute, every time we feel it, we feel sad because we feel like we lost something. And sadness allows us the ability to be like, like that's a really sad thing. Like, you know, how can I help that person? Or, you know, that shouldn't have happened. Or, you know what I mean? Like that's kind of feeling that comes up when we feel sad. So it allows us to access compassion as well. So if you're somebody who goes straight to anger and quite explosive anger, what that can do is it locks off compassion, which means that you can't connect to people, right? So when somebody's experienced it on the other side, you kind of have to then go, okay, well, how can we help them to express sadness? I'm just going to look at the chat box. Yes, so sadness, vulnerability, compassion, that's correct. Because you would only get sad with somebody who you feel like you could be vulnerable with. So like if you think about it, like when you're getting really upset and you're crying or whatever, you're not going to do that with just anyone. You're not going to do that with an acquaintance or a stranger or anything. Well, it's not likely that you're going to do that with them. If you're going to cry in front of somebody, it's typically somebody who you're really close to, who you know can handle your emotions in that moment. So yes, absolutely, it's vulnerability as well. So these are the sorts of things that we're going to be looking out for when it comes to emotional age, guys, and actually being able to see kind of like, you know, where your client is at, where they've catched those sorts of things. And you've actually brought up a really good point there, Di, as well, where you've mentioned the vulnerability, because if a person's struggling to access vulnerability, then you might go, okay, cool. So if they're struggling to access vulnerability, they might be struggling to access some sadness there. If they're struggling to access some sadness, this will be part of why they're not having the connections, the relationships and that sort of thing they want, why they don't have the business that they want, because you have to have a certain level of being able to be vulnerable with people. Because the more vulnerable you are, the more depth you have in your relationships, if that makes sense. Is there any questions on that one before I move on? Because I'm kind of just going through teaching you guys models before we, thank you, that's quite clear, awesome. Before we start playing with them. Just type in the chat box like yes, all good, or like even a Y, just so I know. Good, good, good. Awesome. Question. I'm not sure what your question is there, Di. You said Q, sad for connection. Can you just expand on that a little bit? And anger for build up agreement. I'm not sure if I'm reading your question right, but just let me know if I am or not. So sadness allows you access to compassion. And when you have compassion, it allows you access to connection. And sadness also allows you access to vulnerability. So then as well, like vulnerability is what we need in order to have any sort of close connection with people. Because if you think about it, your closest friends or family are the people who you've been the most vulnerable with. So it does allow that sense of connection. And then anger for build-up of agreement. I'm not really sure what you mean by that, but basically when you're thinking about anger, it's almost like, oh yeah, to show your boundary. Yeah. So when you're really, really angry about something and you want to say, like, no, that's not okay by me, what can happen is, like, if you don't know how to express anger, you'll say it explosively, I can't believe you did that. Rah, rah, rah. Whereas if you're somebody who has a healthy expression of anger because you've done some of this work, what will happen is that you'll be able to say, hey, what happened just then really wasn't cool by me, and I'm not going to tolerate that in future. Right. So it's a very, very different energy. One of them is really ungrounded and it's like explosive. The other one is very grounded, like, hey, that's not cool by me. That's a boundary violation. I won't accept it. You know, it's very, very different. But you can only do that when you've worked on how to express anger. What do you think when you use DISC and you may feel the person is trying to be S person when she is actually, for example, D, but she is playing the role of an S energy? I think when it comes to DISC energy, it's one of the things that I think about is, like, you can access all of the different DISC energies. So one of the things that kind of comes up is people will be like, oh, I'm an S and a C energy, so I'm not going to be as good in business, because D and I energies do tend to do really well in business. The D energy gets shit done. The I energy connects with people really well. So those energies tend to do really well in business. People who are an S and C energy, people kind of go, oh, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that. And I'm going to call BS on that, because you can access any one of those four energies. Even though it might not be your primary energy, you can always access that energy. And so it's not that those energies aren't available to you, but those energies will take more energy from you to access them. So for me, for example, I'm not a high D by any means. I'm a high I, and then I've got S and C very close together. And so for me to access D energy, get shit done energy, that takes energy from me. I can do it. Like, I did it yesterday. I spent like 2 hours just hammering out some work before I went and spent time with my family. But it took a lot of energy out of me. Like in the car ride on the way to where we were going, I was like, all right, I feel tired, you know, and I was just sitting there like trying to re-energize again. So you can access different energies. It's just going to take a little bit more energy. What makes you think that person is playing a different energy that is not their energy? Like, what has been the indicator for that for you? And that's a really good question, by the way. Trying to serve others to keep the peace. Okay, cool. So here's the really cool part, right? What you're going to notice as we start to play around with these models that I've taught you is we're going to start to notice how different models layer over the top of each other. So the really cool thing I love about this is, like, when you know these models and you kind of know them like the back of your hand, what happens is you start to notice how they all make a story about things. And this is going to become more clear as we have a bit of a practice run with this in a moment. And what can happen is you'll kind of go, okay, so this person is a D energy, but the role that they're playing, so I don't know if you're familiar with dysfunctional family roles, but basically the role that this person might be playing is a people pleaser. So she might be a D energy, get shit done, but her role is bigger than her D energy in that moment. And so where she's coming from for the most part is trying to take care of everyone and trying to keep the peace, and it's kind of overriding that natural D energy that she does have. And this is like the thing to really, really keep in mind. Like, I don't really like labels on things, like you're a blah, 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 you know, you're a D energy, you're a good girl, you're a blah, blah, blah. All of these parts are just parts of you that make up a bigger story. And some of these things would be stronger than others, depending on who you had to be as a child growing up to survive within the family. Because all of these different things that we've taken on are all like a big accumulation of things that we thought we had to do to keep safe and keep loved as a child. So we've taken on different roles, or, you know, we've stunted different emotions at, you know, certain emotional ages, you know, all of that sort of thing. So yes, that's what I'm meaning. Beautiful. Okay, does that help clear it up for you a little bit? You're like, oh, I'm madly typing. So to help the client to realize what she is doing. So to help the client realize what she is doing, she needs, first of all, she needs conscious awareness of it. So the 3 levels of learning, and this in itself is another model, is first of all, conscious awareness. So this is what I'm doing with you guys today. We're doing conscious awareness. The second part of learning is actually being able to experience it for yourself. And then the third part of it is teaching others, right? So the first part that you do is you kind of say to the client, like, okay, so here's what I'm noticing based on our conversation, you know, like you're wanting to, and I don't know this client, so I'm just going to make up a story about her. Let's just say, for example, she's wanting to run a business, right? And you're wanting to run a business. You've got the D energy there, which is going to really support your business. But the problem that I'm seeing here is that you've still got the good girl role playing out. And whilst ever you've got the good girl role playing out, she's overriding that D energy, that get shit done in business type energy that you do have available to you. And then what I do is I explain the role of the good girl. The good girl does this, that, and the other. And then I do a roles integration. Like that would be how I'd go about it. But the first thing she needs to know is she needs to know how she's having conflict, which is the conscious awareness part. This is the disc energy. This is the role. And then she has to have an experience of it. So like, experience of it would be like just even her realizing it, like, oh yeah, okay, like yeah, like because I'm playing out good girl, I'm so busy trying to serve everybody that, you know, I'm not respecting the fact that actually I don't want to be serving everybody, you know, I just want to get this thing done, you know, or I didn't want to go into that much detail or whatever it might be, right? So she needs to kind of have that kind of moment, and then in having that moment she's experienced it. And so then she gets to go and master it and actually go and do something with that. So she actually has to go and play around with, you know, letting good girl role go a bit so that she can actually step into who she is without her role and really step up to the plate and let that D energy come out a little bit more. Yeah, does that make sense? I can see you on camera, so just like give me a thumbs up or something. Yeah, awesome, cool. All right, we're going to go into the next one. So this is the third one that I'm going to teach you guys. Then we're going to go into like playing with the models that we've learned so far in a minute, and then I'll teach you the last one after that. So basically, this is the drama cycle. It is a model that was created by Stephen Karpman, and basically we've got kind of 3 parts to this, right? So we've got the villain, we've got the rescuer, and then we've got the victim. Okay, and they all have a job. So the villain's job is to blame. So the villain's job is like, you know, just say they had an assignment due at a certain time and they didn't get it done on time. Oh, I didn't get it done because I had all of this stuff going on in my personal life, and they only gave me like 3 days to do it. So, you know, why didn't that happen sooner? Like it's a lot of blame game. It was everybody else's fault, but not mine. Right? Then we've got the rescuer. So this is very much like the good girl role that I was just talking about just then. Their job is to be the hero. Their job is to save. You know, how can I save? How can I be the hero? And the problem with this role is that it comes at the expense of yourself. It's to the detriment of yourself, right? Then we've got the last one, which is the victim. So the victim feels powerless. Oh, this stuff is always happening to me. You know, why did COVID happen? Why did, you know, why can't I ever, you know, have clients come into my business? Why, like, it's a very like why question is the questions that they ask themselves. And I've actually popped in here some of the regular thoughts that these people have. So for the victim, the thoughts that they'll have a lot is, this always happens to me. You know, or they'll go, oh, it's bound to happen to me, or something like that. You know, it's, and they might even do it jokingly. So, oh, this stuff always happens to me, ha, 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 and like joke it off. But really, it's part of the drama cycle that they're playing out. The villain does a self-righteous type role. So in the blame game, it's like they are wrong, I'm right. So, you know, like I said, you know, using the example of the assignment being late or whatever, it's like, oh, like they didn't really give me enough time to do it, you know, whereas, you know, it may be that they just didn't spend the time studying or whatever. And then the rescuer type hero saving role will go, oh, I'll help them to avoid myself. So they are helping others at the expense of themselves, but they typically haven't already dealt with their own stuff. And they'll say things or they'll think things like, if they just did X, Y, Z, then, you know, they'd be happy, right? Like, I know it all kind of thing. And why won't they listen to me? And there's a lot of energy spent in that. And when there's a lot of energy spent in that, it's draining. It is so draining. Now, the thing to know about all of these is that they all have a reason behind them. So their reason behind them is to be right. So to prove themselves right, to validate their own stories. Their reason behind it is because they have that fear and that adrenaline running through their body. So if we think about the blame game for a minute, you know, it's like it's easier to blame somebody else out of the fear that you're going to get it wrong, you know, or people are going to perceive you in a certain way, right? So there's righteousness, there's fear, and the last one is blame. You know, it's easier to blame others than to take responsibility for ourselves. Now, I've explained the really in-depth part of this, guys. I'm going to explain the opposite role in a minute. Basically, what I want you guys to remember, like if you want to kind of simplify this and just take it really high chunk for a minute, the way to remember this is like, if you can see a client doing things that make life dramatic for them, right? So I've certainly picked this up with a lot of clients when it comes to business, where they build up all of this drama before going and taking the action. So they'll be like, oh, I've got to write all of this content this week, and, you know, it needs to get out. And I said that I was going to do a class and I'm going to run this program, but, you know, I've got to do all of these things first. And they talk about it, and they talk about all the drama that they've got to do. They spend all that energy talking about the drama of the thing that they've got to do, that they don't actually go and get the thing done. This happens a lot in business. I can't tell you how many times I've coached on this. And I've actually experienced it myself, you know, so I couldn't coach on something that I hadn't experienced myself, right? And so one of the things to kind of understand with this is like understanding, where did they get this from? And the first time my coach pulled me up on this, she was like, typically when you're going through a drama cycle, it's because you have grown up in this sort of scenario where there is a lot of drama in your household. And I was like, holy shit, she's right. Like, when I thought about my family, what would happen is, just say something happened with my cousin would then tell my aunt, you know, blah, blah, blah happened. My aunt would call my grandma would call my mum. I come from a European family, can you tell? And then my mum would call me and be like, oh my God, guess what happened to your cousin? Blah, 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 blah happened. Your auntie told me, who told your grandma, who told me, but don't tell anyone. It's a big secret, but it's a big secret that everyone knows. Typical European family, right? And so there was a lot of drama around that, you know, that was like what I grew up with all the time, but I didn't know it, you know, like before I went into the coaching world or anything, I was like, that's just the way it is. Like, everybody tells everyone and nobody knows nothing, but everyone knows everything. Like, that was just how I knew life to be. And so unconsciously, I was playing out those same patterns in other areas, seeking drama in relationships, seeking drama in friendships, seeking drama in business, because I didn't know that it was happening, right? So once I realized this pattern, I realized that I created a whole heap of drama before actually going and doing the work that didn't need to happen. So I dropped that real quick and I was like, okay, what do I need to do? Just go and do the thing, Donna. I also noticed it playing out in my relationship as well. Like, once this came up, I was like, oh, it's coming up everywhere, you know, whereby my at the time boyfriend, now husband, we would create drama in our finances so that we had something to bond over, something to connect over, right? So we do like the up and down roller coaster cycle in our businesses, because then we got to bond over something. As soon as we dropped that, we made a ton of money, buttload of money, but we had to drop the drama cycle first before we could do, you know, get off the up and down roller coaster cycle. Okay. I'm just going to check the chat box. Same with your Asian family. I think a lot of people can relate to this, like European family or not. So the opposite to this, guys, and transforming this particular thing is actively, like for me personally, I just had to have the knowledge of this to go and make the change. So it's going to depend on the individual. For some people, and this is with any type of coaching model or thing, sometimes conscious awareness is enough. And then sometimes they're going to need some sort of NLP, you know, whether that be timeline therapy or whatever else. Like, you know, they might need something deeper in order to, you know, kind of work through that thing that had happened. But, you know, for me personally, because I'd already done a lot of coaching, it was like conscious awareness, bang, let's go make the change, right? And so what that can look like for each of these roles is, if you were the victim, and by the way, before I kind of go into these, you will have one that is your go-to unconsciously, right? So victim might be your go-to unconsciously, villain might be your go-to unconsciously, rescuer might be your go-to unconsciously, right? Mine was rescuer, wanted to save everybody and all the rest of it. So, you know, you'll kind of like, as you look at them, you'll kind of go, oh yeah, I can see some sort of association to that, whether it's present to you now, whether it was present to you at a certain point in time. So yeah, you'll have one that you are drawn to most, but you can do all of them. So that's why I've got the arrows here, because what can happen is you could be the rescuer trying to rescue everyone and then going, if only they did this, then they would be happy, right? Then you go into victim because it's like, oh, like they're not listening to me. What's the point? I shouldn't even be doing this. And then you go into villain. It's like, you know what, like if they just listened to me, then, you know, all of their problems would be solved. You know, they're wrong, I'm right? So you can actually go into the cycle of doing all of these things. And that's really important to know. Now, the opposite of this is, and let's just start with the rescuer here, is being the coach. So not actually thinking like, if I do this, then I'm going to save them from something, because that is not being a coach. That is not helping anyone. You know, jumping in the pit with somebody doesn't help them. Actually allowing people to step up and be the adult themselves is what allows them to grow. When you see a client as being somebody who is a capable adult rather than somebody who needs saving, you empower them to step up. That's where you get clients who get results. When you're trying to save your clients, you don't empower them to step up and get results, because you're seeing them as someone who needs to be rescued. And by default, they see themselves as somebody who needs to be rescued. So it's so important as a coach that you literally be the coach and you go, I know you have what it takes to do this thing. And I believe in you 110%. And it's up to you to kind of step up and really take ownership of that you are the power. You are the one who can make this happen, right? You are, if you're, you know, a guy, then, you know, you're the king of your kingdom, you're the queen of your queendom, you know, whatever it is, like you've got this, right? And they have to feel that sense for themselves. You rescuing them doesn't allow them to do that. And that was something that I did earlier on in my coaching journey. The next one is the victim. So the opposite to that is the creator. So rather than, oh, everything happens to me, it's like, well, what can I do? How can I change this? What needs to happen? You know, so it's kind of like possibility questions. Rather than going, all of this contraction energy happens to me, it's going, well, what else is possible? The next one is the challenger. So again, the challenger is like, rather than they are wrong and blame, it's like, okay, well, how can we expand things? You know, rather than them being wrong and me trying to prove myself right, which is a whole lot of shitty energy, what if I was to go, well, you know, what if we did this? Or have you tried doing that? You know, challenge them on their point of view to expand their way of thinking, right? That's the challenger. That's the expander. Okay, so that's how you kind of have the opposite to that. And how you guys would do this in your coaching is you do it through questions. You know, so when it comes to being a coach, rather than getting in the hole with them. So this is the thing that I used to do in my coaching is I used to do like a check-in with clients and all the rest of it. You know, if I hadn't heard from them in a while or whatever, I'd like check in on them rather than allowing them to actually step up and say, hey, Donna, something's wrong. I need your help right now. I knew if they went quiet that something was wrong. But what I did wrong in that moment, and you guys are all going to do something in your coaching journey like we all do, what I did wrong in that moment is I followed them up. I didn't let them come to me. I didn't allow them to step up for themselves. So I was trying to be Captain Save-A-Ho, you know, like just saving everybody, right? And that wasn't the right way to coach, I recognize now, because it was saving them from actually stepping up and expressing their needs. They were suppressing their needs by not saying anything, right? So by you actually being the coach and stepping back just enough to allow them to step up, you allowed them to start learning to do things that they've never done before, like express, hey, I feel really stuck with X, Y, Z, okay? When it comes to being the creator, you know, again, it's that sense of like really allowing them to, you know, asking questions like, you know, how else could we do this? You know, what would be possible if you did this? Let's just, you know, take away the, because a lot of people go into like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be this. I want to be, you know, blah, blah, blah. They'll tell you all the things that they don't want. So one of the questions that really helps there is like, well, tell me all the things that you do want. And then they start getting creative in their mind, getting the creator out. It's like, oh, maybe I could do this, you know, if I want to do this and I want to do that. And they start thinking about the possibilities of like what could happen. And then the challenger. So the challenger expands, you know, what else is possible is a really good question for that one. You know, what else is possible? How else could we do that? That's the challenger question. So are there any questions on that before I move on? Because we're going to start actually playing with these now. That really resonates with me when I'm coaching some clients. I'm glad to hear it. Guys, do you have any other questions before we kind of actually go and utilize these models? Because what we're going to do is we're going to watch a video, and I want you guys, as you're watching the video, I want you to pull out from what we've just learned. So just using the 3 models that we know now, anything that you can kind of see that might be playing out in this video. So I just want you guys to kind of do that. But yeah, I want to check in before I go into that. So just pop a like, I'm okay, I'm good, whatever in the chat box so we know. Good, awesome, good, good. Good. All right, it's looking like everyone's looking good. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to jump out of this and we're going to jump into this one for a minute. Let me know if you guys can't hear this. You should be able to, but if there's any reason why you can't, just let me know. But basically, I just want you guys to be watching this and looking out for codes and patterns of behavior based on the models that we've just learned.
And revealed their wedding news to their families. And for our final single, Cyrell...
You're making that stir-fry thing?
I'll make it quick. I'll make it quick.
The nerves are starting to build.
So I'm about to go in there and tell my family that I'm going to get married soon. To a total stranger, to top it off. These opportunities don't happen often, and I need to take this chance. I don't think my family is aware of how much I do want to be in love again.
1 down, 20 to go.
I'm heaps worried about Ivan. It's so bad that I have favourites, but Ivan is my closest brother. I love him so much.
Sister.
My brother is just as fiery as I am, and he also has a mouth like I do. So that's really freaking me out right now. Is it okay if everyone just stops eating for 5 seconds? Dad, Mom. So... Shit.
What are you crying for, man? It's so embarrassing. Far out.
All right, what is it?
What is it?
I'm getting married. I don't know my husband yet. Basically, I'm getting married to a total stranger.
Since when did that happen?
Yeah, it's
wanted to do that.
Yeah. Ivan.
I don't know. It's up to you. You've always been like that. You do shit without telling us. When did you ever tell us anything?
I'm just saying, it's just...
You gotta tell us. Talk to your family. You always do things without telling us.
No.
Since when do you do this?
I'm telling you now.
I knew it. I'm like,
I'm
it's
telling
easy
you.
for you. It's easy for you. It's not easy
I'm
for
telling
us.
you now.
You don't know this person. I don't even know this guy, and I don't really like him anymore.
Ivan, please. Ivan, relax, okay?
Ivan, please. Ivan.
I don't know. I'm really speechless. It's a big shock. I've always just wanted the best for my sister. To see her go through this and to put herself in this position, it's kind of hard because I'm afraid of what the outcome could be. What if you don't like this guy? What happens then?
It's not what you think. They get experts.
What
Yes,
expert?
Ivan, they have experts.
No expert can bring love. It comes from the heart, plain and simple.
Come on, Ivan. Get back to your seat, Ivan, please.
You've always been like this. You only think about yourself.
Why? How am I being selfish? You have a family. Karen has a family. I'm by myself.
Come on, Ivan, please.
I'm selfish. I'm selfish.
Don't swear in front of the food.
You've always been selfish.
I'm selfish. Look at. Are you on your own?
Get yourself together first, and then think about getting married.
Oh my God, I'm having a heart attack.
Maybe then you think about getting married.
Shut up.
Come on, Ivan, please. Let's have dinner. Come on, let's have dinner. Try to be supportive to her, please. Don't you feel sorry for her? She just wants to be happy.
Okay, I don't know this guy, and I don't want to know you. No one needs to be marrying a complete stranger. I'm not going to a wedding, plain and simple.
All right. So I'm going to open up the floor to you guys to hear what it is that came up for you. What did you notice in terms of patterns? And I'm just going to go into the chat box so we can play around with this. Yep, so mum is rescuer, bro is villain. So as you say these, guys, what I'd really love to see from you is like putting a little bit of like why you believe that this is the case behind it. So mum is the rescuer, why? Bro is the villain, why? Brother is a challenger, why? What makes you think that? And if it's easier, guys, like I can just we can just take you guys off mute and you can just say whatever it is, or you can write in the chat box. If you feel like you want to just jump on and say it, then feel free to do so. So the brother is a challenger. Brother, you always do this. You never talk to your family. Mum is trying to solve the conflict for everyone. Yes, beautiful. What else? I want to hear from you guys who haven't said anything yet. I'm going to pick on all of you guys to make sure that this is all landing. Cyril moves quickly to emotional age, overexpressed tears. Yep. So what would you say like the emotional age was, Danielle? Like when you're looking at that, what does it kind of remind you of? Like, does it remind you of like a toddler? Does it remind you of like a 5-year-old or a 7-year-old or a teenager? 5 to 7, beautiful. Di, yep, 5 years old. Yeah, and you can kind of tell that, hey guys, like when she's kind of going, like when she cries, she goes like that, like a little child. Like you kind of think of like you can see her whole body language, it just shrivels up inside. What else were we able to tell from that, guys? Was there anything else that you guys picked up on? Looks to the brother for support to rescue and support her. Yeah, very approval seeking behavior with the brother, isn't it? And if she's approval seeking, then she feels the need to prove. So where else is she seeking to prove herself within her life? Like where else would that be showing up potentially? Unenmeshed, boundaryless, beautiful. So Sidki, because we haven't spoken about that, do you just want to like break that down for people in the chat box, what that means? I know what it means, but those who, you know, here might not know what this means. Brother takes over the expressed dominant role. Yeah. So Beck, I want to hear from you. And Noriko, I don't know if I'm saying that right. What have you picked up? Because the only way that we know that like this is really landing is to actually have a play with this. So there's no right or wrongs or whatever. We're just having a play. Mother looks to bring back the family. Oh. Mother looks to bring back the family unit as her S energy wants to keep the family unit together and have a meal, not accepting heightened emotions. Yes, beautiful, Danielle. Lack of boundary between individuals in the family. What's happening with one individual is impacting heavily on the other family members. So this is what Siki was saying in terms of the enmeshment. Also, her brother is immature, has immature behavior to leave the room, awaiting someone to come and console him. Beck, mother is the rescuer, almost ignoring the situation. Beautiful, beautiful, guys. Okay, so we'll go through each of the models for a moment and just make sure that we've ticked everything off. So in terms of disc, what sort of disc energy do you suspect that Cyril might be and why? Other family members stay on the sidelines, don't get involved, shows family tribe dynamic of who runs the show. Absolutely. Ivan has a very strong hold on the family, doesn't he? So I just want to hear from everyone, what do you think Cyril's disc energy is and why? And a very big indicator that will be really helpful for you guys is she is a healthcare worker. So that's a really big indicator to her disc energy. Beautiful. So we're getting lots of S's and I's. Have I heard from everyone? I think Beck is the only person I haven't heard from yet in terms of the disc energy and what you predict she might be. So guys, you are right. I would say SI energy or IS. I'm not sure which one would be her primary and her secondary, like, you know, just off the small clip. But the reasons behind that is if you look at what she does for a living, she's a healthcare worker. So a lot of healthcare workers tend to be S energies because it does take a lot of like that nurturing energy to be a healthcare worker, right? So they're the little like clues and signals that we'd be looking out for when we're looking at codes and patterns of behavior. It's like, what does she do for a living? The other thing we'd be looking out for is, you know, how like nurturing she is and that sort of thing. You can tell she's an I energy because she's very like jovial and gestury. So before she actually gives that sort of, you know, I'm going to go get married and all the rest of it, she does kind of have a bit of a joke around with her family and that sort of thing. So you can see that there's a little bit of jester coming out in there. She also appears to be flighty, jumps around a bit. So what do you make that mean, Danielle, from a coaching perspective? The next thing we want to look at is, so did you notice in terms of her emotions, because we talked a little bit about emotions of anger and sadness, what does she go to as her go-to emotion? What did you guys notice? Sadness, beautiful. So if we know that sadness is her go-to emotion, and based on our conversation today about what sadness and anger means, what do you think that that means to her in terms of how she expresses and what's happening in her life? If sadness is her go-to, what do you think is happening for her? Danielle, easy to be swayed, unclear on her position and her purpose of why she's doing what she's doing. Yeah, which goes back to that approval thing. It goes, so if you think about how she's seeking approval from her brother Ivan, that's why she's got that ungrounded swayingness, because she's not got that sense of approval within herself. She doesn't see herself before others see her. It's external validation. She's angry about something. She's the victim. She might feel she's not important, unworthy. She has no boundaries, cannot articulate what she is truly deserving of. Beautiful, Danielle, you nailed that. It is exactly that. Because she goes to sadness and not to anger, because really what she wanted to express in that moment is like, can you guys just be happy for me? Like, I'm telling you, like, you guys are all married off and you're all partnered up and you're all doing well. Like, I'm sharing something with you. I don't know how to meet a guy. Like, I've tried going out in those dating apps and all the rest of it. I don't know how to meet a guy. I'm trying this experiment because I feel like I have no other option. And you guys are all poo-pooing on it. What she would really like to express in that moment is anger. Like, I'm pissed off at the fact that nobody's respecting this decision. Nobody's happy for me. Nobody's at least like, okay, let's get curious about this. Like, you know, what does this mean for you? You know, so because she can't express that, because her go-to emotion is sadness, she's kind of like shriveling in. It's almost like you know, like, I can't express what I want, so I'm just going to go inwards, which is why she did the whole, you know, covering her face with her hands and that sort of thing. Her unresourceful sadness is that of a 5-year-old who cannot express and articulate it. Beautiful. So she's got the emotional age of a 5-year-old, is what we're seeing here, or, you know, someone around that age. So guys, I want you to notice for a minute, we already know from what we've just watched there a whole heap of information about her. We know that she is a SI energy. We know that her emotional age is around the age of a 5-year-old. We know that her go-to emotion is sadness rather than anger. And so in terms of coaching, what we might need to kind of coach her through is how to express a healthy level of anger and how to express anger just in general, because she won't know how to do that. We need to, based on her emotional age, we need to go back to the age of around about 5, or, you know, ask her. So, you know, I've noticed that you go to sadness as a go-to emotion rather than anger. What is your relationship with anger? Oh, you know, maybe my parents or my dad or my mum, you know, they expressed anger or whatever, and I didn't want to be the angry one. Or my brother expressed anger really well and I didn't want to be angry like that. Okay, cool. And do you remember a specific event or something like that where this might have happened? Oh yeah, I was around the age of 5 and blah, 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 event happened. Okay, cool. Let's go do some timeline therapy on that, or deep state repatterning on that. You know what I mean? Like, we'd go and do some sort of work on that. There are other things that we could do with anger, which I'm not going to get into today because it's a whole nother thing. But basically, you know, those are some of the things that we'd go to, you know, just kind of find out where that event had happened initially and work from there. And then in terms of the drama cycle, how did you guys see that playing out within the family? And do you think it needed to be that dramatic? He's a villain, yep. Brother continues to be the most vocal in the family, yep, definitely. I'm right, you're wrong. How can you get married to somebody like this? Yeah, that's how he's playing that villain. I know better than you. Not has to be that way for if everyone can express what they are worrying. Sorry, it keeps moving on me. Has to be that way if everyone can express what they are worrying about or what they need. Yep, so it doesn't have to be that dramatic if they can express their feelings and what they're feeling around the whole situation. People can move from one role to another and continue the drama. Yep, how did you notice that? How did you notice them moving through the different roles? Beck, what did you notice? She moves into the rescue role as well as trying to rescue the brother. Do you notice Cyrell went into a bit of the victim, a bit of the, like, when she went like that, there was like the, oh, I can't, you know, why me? Why doesn't anyone understand me? It's very much that role. Yep, she was a victim in that scene. Beautiful. So we even have like, now we've got like a whole big story, right? So again, we know that she's the SI energy. We know that she goes to sadness over anger. We know that she went to the victim as her first point of call. So we know there's like a whole heap of stuff that we can be coaching her on already, right? Like this has all just told us a story. When you layer these things over the top of each other, it's told us a big story of like what's going on for her. We've seen that she feels this need to prove. So prove herself to Ivan, you know, get Ivan's approval. When you're getting someone else's approval, it means that you come from a space of wanting to prove, right? So when you're coming from a space of wanting to prove, then you'll constantly be seeking external validation. If you're constantly seeking external validation, what that's going to mean is that, just say you are running a business, your validation isn't going to come from you internally. It's going to come from how many people are liking your status, how many people are commenting, how many people are showing up to your classes or your lives or whatever. Your approval of yourself will come from those external places. And if you're basing it on that, just say you put a post out there and it gets 2 likes on it, you're going to go, oh, I'm shit, I can't do this, right? So if she was trying to run a business, that would be the cycle that would be playing out for her, which then allows her to go more into her victim and more into the I can't do this, why me, blah, 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 and shrink in. She seeks acceptance too. Yeah, exactly. Acceptance, approval, hand in hand, definitely. Cool. So you guys seeing how like with a client, you can tell like a whole big story just based on having a couple of these models. There's even more that we could probably tell from that if we had more models that we were going through, but we're just focusing on the ones that we have today because I don't want to get it too confusing for you guys. Was there anything else that I wrote down? You'll notice as well, like, I don't know if you guys noticed the mum saying, oh, I'm going to have a heart attack, you know, as like all of this was playing out. So again, like, if you think about the mum and dad being the leaders of the family, the heads of the family, if mum's going, oh, I'm going to have a heart attack, you know, the drama has come from somewhere. So she's learned how to do drama from somewhere. And when her mum had that response, that could be one of the places she's potentially learned how to do that. Now, the next question that I have for you guys, and this is the one that I've just popped up on the screen here, is based on what you've seen in that short scene that we watched there, what behavior could you predict might happen for her? How do you think these things that we've picked out from her disc energy, from her drama cycle, from her emotional age, how do you think that these things might play out in terms of her work and her career? How might it play out in terms of her relationships? Like, I'd love to see you guys like predict a little bit of her behavior based on what we know. Yep, mum is trying to manipulate the situation and have mind games. Agreed. So much drama and trying to divert attention. 100%. So Beck, when you think about that in terms of her future behavior, so if you think about that in terms of her relationships, or you think about that in terms of her work, how might those things play out, that drama that you were talking about? She won't feel happy if someone, hang on a second. If someone does not see, oh, it keeps going down. What she's doing for the work or family. Yep, so she needs that external validation. So she'll never feel happy because she's always seeking external validation. Well done. What else? I'm just writing these down so that we can make a story out of these. She keeps feeling nobody helps her, no one understands her. Yep, so she keeps getting to be the victim. And if she keeps getting to be the victim, let's just chunk that down again. What does that mean for her? So she's always the victim in everything. How does that play out for her in her relationships, in her work, in other scenarios in life? Danielle, difficult for her to manage conflict, making relationships challenge, lack of boundaries. And so she has a capacity to build resentment over time. Yes, beautiful. So resentment from lack of expression. Play the play the victim, poor me, give up on my goals. Yes, well done, Beck. She won't have power to stand up and speak up for herself if she's the victim. Cyrell not having the ability to communicate her boundaries, feel good enough in her life and work and relationships. Yes. She feels somebody needs to rescue her and may not be keen to do the work on herself. Sorry, may not feel worthy. Yeah. Okay, beautiful. So if we're thinking about this from her relationship point of view, married at first sight, the likelihood is if she's got that much drama happening in her family, like if she goes, hey guys, this is what's happening, and she has that much drama happening in her family, the likelihood is that drama is what she's going to take into her relationship. So just say she meets a really nice, grounded, steady guy who's, you know, really relaxed and cool as a cucumber. She might perceive him as being boring. And I don't, like, if anyone has done relationship coaching, you might have come across this. I certainly have. I used to do relationship coaching before I did business coaching. And I come across women who'd be like, oh, he's a nice guy, but he's boring. And one of the things that we'd have to coach on is the drama cycle, because they would be calling him boring because he didn't fulfill the trauma bond that she was used to having, or the drama cycle that she was used to having of, you know, things always being chaotic in her life, right? So she'll seek out unconsciously relationships that matched what she's always known. Because if you think about it, if the environment was always drama growing up, then you're going to unconsciously seek out the environment of drama within your relationship, right? So she might try and pick fights over something that, you know, is not worth fighting over, you know, because she needs that drama, she needs that excitement, that thrill, that, oh, we're fighting, I don't know if we're going to get back together, oh, I didn't mean to explode like that, or I didn't mean to make it a bigger deal than it was, blah, 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 why doesn't he love me, you know, seeking that drama for that purpose. Okay, she won't want to settle down, she needs drama to make her feel familiar and safe. That's it, that is exactly it, feels familiar and safe. You know, if she's the victim, then it's always going to be, why did this happen to me? So she never gets the opportunity to create opportunities for herself if that's what she's always been. So, you know, there might be a job that pops up in her workplace because she's a healthcare worker. It might be that she doesn't go for that job because she's like, well, I don't know if I'm going to be good enough for it, because remember, she has approval issues. And also, you know, why would they choose me anyway? I don't think that they're going to, you know, choose me anyway, so what's the point? Because that's the victim mentality, right? So they wouldn't even give it a go, kind of thing, you know. So there are certainly things that, you know, could play out there. So she gets what she wants. She is also confused what she really wants. She has no idea what healthy relationships are supposed to be. Exactly. She doesn't know a healthy relationship because she hasn't experienced one, right? Now, the other thing is you guys mentioned a lack of expression, right? So the fact that when she expressed what she was doing, everyone came down on her. Why are you doing that? That's so stupid. That's so silly. La, 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 right? So as soon as she expressed something, everyone kind of came down on her and she cowered in, right? So how that can come up in relationships is that can come up as either not expressing to your partner what it is that you need, and therefore creating fights with your partner because you expect them to read your mind. So I know one of the frustrations that a lot of men have with women is that they can tend to feel a little bit like they feel frustrated because the woman isn't expressing herself, right? And she might not be expressing herself if she's come from a family that's like this, that puts her down the moment that she's tried to express out. How that can end up turning into is, if she continues not to express herself, that can actually become quite explosive, right? So if she does the whole volcano thing and she's like, doesn't express, and then over expresses, right? So over expressing being, rather than I didn't like that, that wasn't okay by me, you know, you're an asshole, you're a dickhead, whatever it is, and actually yelling and going to town on their partners, you know, even maybe getting physically abusive. That's what happens when somebody isn't expressing themselves. And that's a prediction that we could make for her if she continues not to express herself. But she won't know it's safe to express herself because she's never been given a safe space to express herself, which we can see based on this video, right? So whoever she's with, they have to almost build up a trust with her that it is okay for her to express. You know, there has to be, she practices expressing with them and they go, they accept her expressing with them. Whether they agree with it or not doesn't matter, but it's about that other partner actually being like, yeah, I hear you in that. I hear you and I accept you and it's okay. Or I hear you, I don't agree with it. You know, what about this instead? You know, and like actually having a conversation rather than you're wrong, that's wrong, which is what she's received so far. And that would take coaching. You know, she would need a coach to help her through that, a coach to help her to know that it's safe. And her first person that she'll probably express to is a coach, because nobody else will be safe in her life to do it with, because everyone else in her life has been built on the filters that she currently has in the world. Right. And this is why our job as a coach is so, so important, because we are like the first people that they get to open up to in that way. I'm now officially interested to watch mass short clips to assess human behavior. I do it all the time. This is like my thing that I geek out on. That's why I love that show so much. It's not so much for the actual show itself. It's totally just to geek out on human behavior. Because relationships are a reflection of where we're at. They're always mirroring where we're at as a person, right? So that's why I choose this show a lot, to kind of use this as an example, because it gives a really good example of where that person is at. All they're doing is mirroring back things that, you know, haven't been healed in you, in your relationship. All right. So does anyone have any questions or anything before I move on from that? Because we're going to go into a little bit of how this relates to marketing and sales and how you can build programs based on understanding models of behavior as well. Just type a yep, all good, or question. Good, good, good. Awesome. Yep, that's all good, Danielle. Awesome. Thanks for being here. Okay, cool. I'm going to jump into the next one. So, all right. So what we're going to do now is we're going to read the energy and the code behind this particular post, right? So I know you guys, like, you might have seen it in groups and that sort of thing. What can tend to happen is people will write like a question in a thread and they'll be like, hey guys, like I need help with whatever it is, right? And people will write back to that question, but how they'll write back to it will be like, it'll be something along the lines of like, oh, DM me because I can help you. And then that person gets all like, oh, I don't even know you, and you're just going to try and sell me your coaching, right? Or they'll be like, oh, you know, I think it's blah, blah, blah. And they'll give like the surface level answer to the question because they don't know kind of like how to read the code underneath, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to read here like the energy behind the question and kind of breaking down the code of the question that's come up here. So let's just pretend here that this is the question that's come up. So the question is, how do I stop negative thoughts on financial lack? This is actually, by the way, something that I pulled out from a real post that I saw on a group. I do all this work and I never feel like it's enough. It's not fair. Why does it work for others and not me? Please help. So thinking about the codes of behavior that we've learned today and just looking at kind of what you can see there, what do you think is going on? What can you see code-wise that's happening there? And just type it in the chat box. Victim mindset, victim energy, beautiful. Victim, why does it work for others and not me? Perfect, perfect. And so when we're looking at that, guys, when you're looking at it from like an energetic perspective, and this is really important as well in like learning to read people and understand how to coach people, the energy behind that question, what is it? Like, is it really heavy or is it light and fluffy? Like, what would you say the energy is? So it's lack. Yep, beautiful. It is definitely one of lack energy. It's heavy. Is it one that you want to be around? Is it the sort of energy that you're like, yeah, let's go hang out? No, need to be rescued. Beautiful. And so if it's not the sort of energy, you've said there, Noroko, it's not the energy that you'd want to hang around, right? Why is it not the energy that you'd want to hang around? Siki, why is it not the energy you want to hang around? Like, just let me know, guys. And if you know that that's not the energy that you would want to hang around, what do you think others are thinking? Friendship, business, in whatever capacity, is this the sort of person that you think people are going to gravitate towards? Relationships? This person will suck my energy. I agree. Beautiful, right? So we read that, and if we feel the energy behind it, because this is what a lot of people don't do. They look at a question like that and they just answer the question. They're like, oh, I think that you need to start doing this. And what they don't do is they don't take a step back and go, have you actually like just looked at kind of like the energy that you're in right now? Because the energy, like if we're looking at this from a manifestation law of attraction point of view, the energy of abundance and receiving is one that's like, oh, I just fucking love life. Like, you know, I love what I'm teaching. You know, this is the biggest thing that I kind of see from like coaching businesses that really struggle is like, they don't love what they're teaching, you know, or there's no like passion behind it. The thought process behind it is like, I want to get my first paying client. You know, it's all about like, what can I get? You know, how can I convert them? How can I get them on a sales call? What can I do that's interesting enough for them to want me? And it's so icky and yucky and grabby, and it's not trusting yourself. And if you don't trust yourself, how do you expect anyone to trust you, right? And so this is the same sort of energy. It's like that really low, dense energy. And that energy is not the energy that pulls in clients. It's not the energy that pulls in money. The energy that pulls in clients and pulls in money is the one of genuinely loving what you're teaching. Like, I love the code of human behavior. I love teaching you guys like how to read and pull out different models and create a story for that client. Because like what I do when I first jump on a call with a client, like a client that I've never met before, is I'll do like 10 minutes of like, tell me a little bit about yourself, right? They'll go in and they'll tell me about their problem and all that sort of thing. I'm writing notes as they're doing that. And then I'm able to feed back to them like the things that I've noticed based on like different models and codes. And they're like, whoa. And then I can ask them questions and be like, so I imagine that sometimes you feel a little bit like this. And they're like, oh, how did you know? That's exactly what I think. Like, that's my thought word for word, right? And I love being able to teach you guys how to do that. And you can feel that in the energy that I'm sharing with you guys right now. Like, I genuinely love it. I feel tickles in my tummy when I talk about it, right? Whereas if you don't have that energy behind what it is that you're teaching, then you can't expect to grow a coaching business that is just like going to be really expansive and enjoyable and, you know, build a lot of wealth for you. Like it comes from that sort of energy. So when you look at this post, that post is not coming from that. And so what it's attracting is attracting like energy. The energy of like heaviness is attracting heaviness. It's not attracting what the energy of money would be. You can also notice in there a little bit of emotional age. It's not fair. You know, if you kind of think about like a child, no, it's not fair. Why did they get a lollipop and I didn't? You know what I mean? Like, it's that sort of energy. So you can see it from the emotional age perspective. You can also see it from, you know, your drama cycle perspective, you know, the victim energy, you know, so we already know a little bit about this person. We can read their energy. We can read their drama cycle. We can read their emotional age, you know, and we can kind of predict, again, where else would this be happening in their life? You know, if they're doing this in this part, I'm going to guess that either they've got a really shitty relationship or they've got a relationship, they don't have a relationship at all. And they're sitting there going, why am I single? Right? Because if that's the sort of energy, the dense energy that they're sitting with in terms of their finances, that's the sort of dense energy that they'll be putting out in other areas of their life, because how we do one area is how we do all areas. Yeah. Is this landing for you guys? Let me know what's coming up for you as I'm rattling off, and I'm just going to have a sip of my water. I can tell you guys, like, when I see these posts, because people aren't doing this and because they're coming from a space of like, what's in it for me? How can I get this person into my inbox so I can sell them as a coaching client? they don't get many likes or they don't get many responses from people. When I write a reply to a comment that's like this, I always get the most amount of likes on it. And this is not me being an arrogant dick or whatever, but I almost always get the most likes on it, because what I'm sharing is like genuinely valuable, you know. And the really cool thing about it being genuinely valuable is other people see your response. So I'll write something that's really valuable for the person who's asked the question, but 10 other people might see it. And so I might get like 10 likes on that one comment. I might also get that, you know, one of those people or a couple of those people add me as a friend on Facebook. And then they add me as a friend on Facebook and they see some of my content for a while, they get to know me for a little bit, and then they end up in my inbox naturally, right? So again, like, it's kind of thinking of business as like the long-term game, rather than being like, oh, I have to get them in my inbox right now. Like, if you add something really valuable and then you keep on doing valuable content and they're your friend online, they're going to see that and they're going to be like, holy shit, I have to work with this person. Like, they're just sharing things that are really, really cool, you know, that are just rocking my world. Okay, so, and that has literally happened to me. Like, I've had several people join my programs or one-to-ones or whatever from doing this sort of thing. But you have to be able to know what the code is to be able to give a good response rather than a surface response for that sort of thing to happen. So that's how it can show up in your marketing. That's just one way. How it can show up in your sales. And this is, I'm just going to go through this kind of quickly, given the time. I didn't realize how long this would take. But basically, when you're on a sales call with someone, right, you're taking them through their cognitive dissonance. So what I mean by their cognitive dissonance is you're taking them from Stink Island to Party Island, and you are the tour guide in between, right? So Stink Island is basically all like where they are now. So they're, you know, let's just take the business client, for example. They're not making the money that they want to make. They're not calling in the clients that they want to call in. They can see everybody else, you know, rocking it out there in the business world. And they're sitting there and they're going, why can't I do this? I'm putting content out there, but it doesn't seem to be reaching people. It doesn't seem to be getting the right people into my doors, that sort of thing, right? So that's the Stink Island kind of, you know, place. And they're sick of putting things out there to not get anything back, right? Party Island is they've got clients coming to them easily and effortlessly. Like, they just feel like they're magnetic and all of that sort of thing. Like, it feels really, really easy. Okay. And then we've got you as a tour guide in between. So your job in the sales call is to explore Stink Island and then take them over to like what Party Island can look like, and then explain to them how you as a tour guide are the person who can help them from Stink Island over to Party Island. That's a very brief explanation of cognitive dissonance in sales, because I literally can do like an hour class on that. Like, it's a really, you know, in-depth model, and there's a lot more to it, but I'm just, for the purposes of like getting this across to you, I'm kind of giving you the basics. So when you're speaking to a client, and we're looking at disc energies here, and you're taking them from Stink Island over to Party Island, and you're being that tour guide in between, for different disc energies, it's going to require different questions, right? So like, if you've got a C or an S energy, they're past assurance based. So they're going to be looking for problem, and they're going to be looking at the past. For your Party Island, for your D and I energies, they're going to be looking out to Party Island. So what I mean by this is, like, I have a client who is so high D. She's high D and I. So like, she's always looking out to the future. She's always looking out to the positive. She's like, oh, I can make that work because of blah, 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 right? Which is awesome and works for her really well to a certain point. But then what can happen is that she's so busy looking for the future and for the positives in everything that she actually misses why she's not getting to the place that she wants to get, right? So I almost have to kind of like, for her, bring her back a little bit, chunk her down a little bit, and kind of be like, okay, cool. So, you know, why do you think this isn't happening for you? You know, and she'll probably say something like, oh, I don't know, like, you know, I guess, you know, maybe it's this. And so then we'll have to chomp down on that answer, and then chomp down on that answer. But like, your D and your I energies, they're going to be looking very much to the future when it comes to sales. They're going to be looking at like, you know, how's it going to look for me at the other end? You know, what can you do to transform my life, kind of thing. Your S and your C energies are going to be very focused on the now and what's happened in the past. I can't do this because, you know, right now I'm not getting the results. And in the past I've tried and it didn't work for me, and all the rest of it. So like, with your S and your C energies, they can't be pushed. Like they really cannot be pushed. And the thing is with those guys is like, as the tour guide, what your job will be in the sales call is to be like, it'll be to kind of like paint them a picture of where they are now. So like, you know, I'd say, okay, cool. So tell me about where you are now. And they will explain all of the problems that they have right now in really, really great depth. And then my job is to take them over to Party Island, right? And to get them to explore the possibilities, right? So I'd say to them like something like, you know, well, what would you like to have happen? I'd like to have this happen, but I don't think it'll happen because back in the past, blah, blah, blah. And I'd stop them in that moment. I go, stop there. What is it that you would like to happen? Just forget about all the reasons why it couldn't happen and all the rest of it. Imagine you going shopping, you can have anything you like, you know, what could you do? And they'll be like, I don't know, I just want a really successful business. Okay, cool. Tell me, what would that successful business give you? I guess I get to be at home with my kids. Awesome. Wouldn't that be cool to be at home with your kids? You know, and being at home, like, you know, when they finish school and that sort of thing, and being able to do their homework with them and that sort of thing. Oh yeah, I'd love that. I'd love to be at home with my kids and doing their homework with them. Awesome, right? So we're getting somebody who is past assurance based to now be talking about the future, but we're going to have to prompt them because that's not their natural go-to, right? And we need to do that for them to see what is possible over for them on Party Island. Because at the moment, their filter of the world is going to be Stink Island. It's going to be all the things that have happened now and how it's not working out now and how it didn't work out in the past. So that's your job for them, is to get them over here and get them really feeling into that. And then after that, kind of going, okay, cool. So the things that I've noticed within this session have been blah, 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 blah. So noticing like kind of where the gaps are between their way of thinking here, being able to get over to Party Island, you know, and you'd be like talking about like the gaps that you can kind of see in between. With these guys are going to be able to tell you right away, like, oh, like I know what I want in the future. I want to have like, you know, $1 million property, and I want to go traveling, and I want to have a business that impacts the world, and blah, blah, blah. Like they're going to have like all of those things, right? And your job in that one will be like, okay, cool. Like it's so clear what you want. And what do you perceive are your gaps, or what do you perceive are the things that might be holding you back right now? You know, what do you think right now could be the thing? You know, how do you feel about money? How do you feel about the strategy that you have right now? Like you'd have to kind of like chunk them back to this, to Stink Island, so almost do the opposite for them to actually see that there's a problem. Because if they don't see that there's a problem, they're not buying. You know, if they're in Party Island and they don't perceive the problem of right now, then they're not buying. So your job is to actually take them over to here to see that there is a problem, so that they can go, okay, cool. So I need to solve this so I can actually be on Party Island over here. Cool. How are you going to take me there, Donna? And then I'd go, da, 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 da. These are the gaps that I'm noticing here. Okay. So how you communicate in your sales calls with a C and an S energy is going to be so different to a D and an I energy. There's a very quick overview. Again, like there's a lot more to this, but this is kind of like the quick overview of what that would look like. I just want to check in with you guys before I move on. Do you have any questions around that? I'm just opening up the chat box. Di, all good? And I'm just showing you this, guys, because I think like when you think of the code of, you know, human behavior, and you think of human behavior patterns, a lot of people just think about coaching. Like they just think about, oh, how would it impact my coaching sessions? They don't realize that like this actually impacts your sales, impacts your marketing, impacts like how you can have clients coming through your door, impacts how you can show them how valuable you are as a coach. Beautiful. Love the overlay model on sales conversation. Yeah. Well, there's actually a really cool thing in this as well. Like I can't get into this today because we've only got such a limited amount of time, but this is something that I'll be teaching in the program, is actually how to sell through models. So you can use models of behavior to actually show a person like where they, you know, sit to be able to sell them into your coaching program. So like a really good example of that is the spiral model, the trust me model, as some people know it. I was doing TCI back in 2014, so they called it spiral back then. But basically that's a model that kind of explains like different levels of behavior, and I'm not going to go like too far into it, but level 1 is like, you know, if I was selling a business client, because that's who I mostly work with, is people who are running a business, you know, level 1 would be someone who doesn't even think they could start a business. They're like, no, I can't do it. Like, it can't happen for me. And they're not even going to probably get on the phone to me at that point. Level 2 is the people who have got an ABN, they've got a business name, but they're not making any money in their business. They're telling everyone that they're running a business, but they're not actually making money in their business. Level 3 is the rebellion phase, and that's where you start to make a little bit of income in your business, right? And so if I had somebody jumping on the phone with me and they were saying to me, hey, Donna, like, you know, I want to be able to get from a space of like not having clients, not knowing why clients aren't coming to me and all the rest of it, you know, I'd be saying to them, like, you know, in my stink and party island thing, I'd be explaining like this model to them and being like, well, at the moment where you are right now is you're at this level 2 space. You've got the ABN, you've got the, you know, you've got the ABN, you've got the company name or whatever, you're out there and you're putting things out there, but you don't really have any strategy behind what it is that you're doing. And you don't really believe that it's possible. Like on a deep unconscious level, you don't believe it's possible. And so what's happening is that you're not stepping into that level 3. And level 3 is like literally the moment where you burn the bridges and you're like, I'm going to do whatever it takes to make this business happen, right? And I'll explain that to them. It's kind of like at level 2, you're almost like dipping your toe in the pool. At level 3, you're immersing your whole body into the pool. You're jumping all in and you're like, stuff it. I don't care what happens. I'm making this thing happen. And I'll explain that to them. You know, like you're at level 2, you're wanting to move into level 3. And this is the journey to that. And this is what we're going to have to cover in order for that to happen, right? And so this is like one of the ways that I sell through models. Like there are so many different models that you could use to sell through, but this is just one example of that. So models and codes and patterns of behavior apply in lots of different ways. It applies in the actual structure of how you speak to people. It also applies in like how you can sell to them, you know, and show them what their problem is, because people love models and codes of behavior. They love a model because they love to place themselves on a model. All right. So this is the last one that I'm going to go through with you guys. So recently, I had a 7-figure coach reach out to me. She's really, really well known in the industry. And she was like, Donna, what do you think is the best way to structure my program? Like, should I break it off? Because at the moment, what she's got this really successful program that she has like a good couple of hundred people in it. But she's like, you know, I'm wanting to upgrade it. I don't want to do it live anymore. I want it to be an evergreen thing. But she's like, I've got different people at different stages of business coming into it. So what do you think I should do? And I explained to her, I was like, there's this model. And when she asked me the question, she's like, either I'm going to do like a break it off into beginners, intermediate or advanced, or I'm thinking of like, you know, here's the whole program, choose which like path you feel is like most suitable for you. And I was like, I think you should do the one, like the Goosebumps one. I don't know if you guys ever read the Goosebumps books. That's how she referred to it, where like you can choose your own adventure at the end of the book. I was like, I think you should take that route. And the reason for it is because you're going to have people at different stages of business coming in there. And I used this model to explain it to her. So this is a legacy model by Paul Dunn. And basically there are 4 stages of business. We have new or failing, surviving, a space where you're like, wow, I actually like created the business that I want. And then you have a meaning-driven business, right? Now, what typically happens is we go a new or failing business is the first step. Then you get to a point of income where it's like, I'm just making enough money to survive. So I might be able to leave my job and survive. And then we go to a space of, wow, it's like, whoa, I'm on the 6-figure plus income and, you know, everything's working out for me. This is amazing. Now I got to this place in 2019 where I was at like the wow stage and I was like, holy shit, making more money than I ever thought, like traveling the world, like just loving life, right? But then the question that comes up, and this is something that happens a lot, is there's like this 6-figure depression thing that happens where it's like, what's the point in going up again? Because the only thing that happens is I make more money, you know, so there's no real drive or excitement behind it. Whereas when you're in the first 2 levels, there's drive and excitement behind it because you're trying to leave your job. You know, you're trying to get away from the old way of being. You want to, you know, go and have your own freedom lifestyle, whether that means like being at home with your kids, traveling the world, whatever it is, freedom to just make enough money to not have to worry about money. Like, you know, all these 2 ones are moving away from something, you know, they're ambition driven. But when you've gotten to here, it's like, well, what are you working towards besides more money? Like there's no real thrill. So what happens is people go down the spiral or they go to the next level, which is meaning they go up the spiral. 9 times out of 10, what I've experienced with clients is that they tend to, at this level, go down the spiral because they don't know about meaning-driven business. All they've done to this date is built everything on ambition, everything on moving away from being in a 9-to-5 job or whatever. And so I said to her, you know, you're going to have clients who get to here, but then they're going to slide back down the scale. And with your program, what they're going to need to do is they're going to actually need to go back to the basics. They're going to have to go down to level 1 in your program, the basics in your program, and restart all over again in a sense. Because what happens is you coach up to here, and then you're not the same person. Like who I was when I started my coaching journey is not who I am now, right? And so I had to do this. I had to go back and revisit who is my ideal client. How many hours a week do I want to work? What do I want my business to look like? You know, how available or non-available am I? Do I want to work with one-to-ones? Do I want to work through programs? Do I only want to work through programs? Do I want to work through evergreen? Like there was a whole heap of questions that I needed to ask. And I had to do that through like going back to this first stage. And I said, if you make it, you know, 3 separate programs where you've got beginners and then intermediate and then advanced, your people who are sitting here and sliding back down the scale will go to advance because they think that that's what they need, but actually that what they need is to kind of go back to that starting process and go, hang on a second, let's get clear on this for a minute. What am I focusing on? What's my thing? Because that's the thing that happens a lot as well, is like you get to this wow stage and you start to look for like, what other value can I provide? And you start just including shit that doesn't need to be included into your programs because you just want to be the most valuable coach out there, and you forget the fundamentals of what made you successful in the first place, the main message that you had that made you successful in the first place. So I was like, if I were you, I would have it as like you can choose this, this, or this, and then they can go based on where they're at. And she's like, oh, right, that's amazing. And then I explained to her what this level was, and this level is like meaning. So creating, rather than just creating a business, creating a movement, creating a business that is like bigger than you, bigger than money. It's not about the money anymore. It's like, for me, mine is like, how many people can I impact? How many people can I give the lifestyle of freedom to that I've been able to create for myself? Like my business has allowed me to travel the world. It's allowed me to be at home with my daughter. You know, we're just about to move over to Bali again in a couple of months. Like it allows us to do some really cool things. You know, we've had some amazing experiences, eating at the best restaurants in the world, all the rest of it. Like we've had some really cool experiences based off of our business. And I want that for other people. Like I want to be able to create that for other people. It's so important to me. Right. And that's my meaning driven business. That's my movement. Create as many people as I can having that sort of business for themselves. Right. And so that inspires me more than money now, you know, and that's where I had to get to. And I explained this to her and she was like, oh my God, that's me. Like, you know, I'm at that meaning driven space, blah, blah, blah. So like, this was the thing that helped her to decide the structure of her program. Right. And this is what I'm saying, guys, like, it's not just about coaching. It's not just about how you can market or, you know, use this for marketing or for sales or whatever. It can even be used in how to structure your program. Like that's how valuable knowing what these things, you know, can be for you guys. And this was her response. A little like emoji, like holy shit, I can't believe it. So guys, questions. Do you guys have any questions or anything like that from today's class? I'm just going to pop my chat box up. Very good. Because I know I've just thrown so much information at you guys. No questions so far. Beautiful. Does anyone else have any questions or anything? Just give you guys a minute to type back. Just a yes or a no is fine, unless you do have a question. Going back to the rescuer, I have a client who stopped, and I sent another email. When she responded, then she stopped. I'm not sure if I should keep contacting her or not. What do you mean stopped? As in stopped wanting the coaching? Stopped the coaching. Okay, is it a pro bono or is a paid client? Pro bono. Cool. This is an awesome lesson for you here. So there comes a point in time, and this is what I was saying with that spiral trust me model before, where you need to decide whether you want to continue to work with pro bono clients or whether you want to raise the standard for yourself and be the coach who works with paying clients. And this for you is an opportunity, because what happens with pro bono clients is that they don't respect the time, the energy, and the love that you give in your coaching because they're not paying for it. It's like if I gave you a Kmart bag and then I gave you a bag that was from like Gucci or Prada or whatever, which one are you going to take better care of? You're going to take care of the labeled bag, right? Like you're probably not going to want to put that on the ground at the shopping mall or whatever because, you're going to be so worried that like you're going to get it dirty because those bags are like $1,000 or $2,000 or whatever it is a piece, right? Whereas your Kmart bag that you bought for $20, you're going to be like, oh yeah, it doesn't matter if I leave it on the ground or on the chair next to me. It'll be fine if it gets a bit of dirt on it. Like you don't think about it. And it's exactly the same with coaching. As a pro bono client, she's not valuing and respecting your time and your energy that you're giving to her because she's not paying for it. She doesn't have anything on the line. If you have something on the line, then you'll be sure that you're making changes. But when you have nothing on the line, you don't have any reason to make any changes. And so this for you, it's actually not even about her. This is a beautiful moment for you to decide, do I want to be the coach who's taking on pro bono coaching, or do I want to be the coach who steps fully in and decides that I'm worth being paid for? And that's my response to that one. It's probably not the question that you thought, the answer that you thought, but I don't actually think this is more about you making a decision to raise the standard for yourself. And to answer your question, I personally, because my standard is one of I don't work with pro bono clients, I personally wouldn't be following that up because I can't be more invested in coaching than my clients. My clients have to be just as much interested than, as what I am. Beautiful. I had a paid client doing that too, and he replied to me after 2 months. Paid clients is a little bit different, Di, because the thing is like, this is kind of what I was saying before. If you go and follow him up and follow him up and follow him up, you're not actually giving him the opportunity to step up for himself and be an adult. If we treat our clients like they're kids, then they're going to be kids. Whereas if we give them the opportunity to be the adult and step up to the plate, then they will raise the standard and step up to the plate. So it's really important that we don't chase them up for that reason. It's really important that we let them be the adults that they are, or we help them to raise that energetic standard to be that person. And they can only be that if we kind of set the standard of what that looks like. Yeah, because otherwise what you're doing is you're actually, if you look at the drama cycle, what you're doing is you're going and you're being the hero rather than the coach. Just signed up for the next step. Thank you, Donna. I don't know what you mean, just signed up for the next step. Thank you, agree. Yes, that makes sense. Beautiful. Okay, so if you guys don't mind, I'm just going to share with you for a moment a little bit about the Crack the Code program. So basically it is a 12-week program. There are 12 live classes like this. They probably won't be as jam-packed as this one because I was trying to, share with you guys as much as possible today. But basically, you'll have the opportunity to kind of like ask me questions, for us to go through things live, for us to actually practice these things live, together in a live class. So you'll have 12 live classes with me. You'll have access to me as well through our community. So you can ask any questions and that sort of thing. What I found previously is that the community was really, really active. Like lots and lots of people were asking questions and sharing experiences and sharing what had happened in their different you know, coaching sessions and that sort of thing. So it was a really, really fun community that we have there. You also get access to the portal. So the portal is basically, it has like a whole heap of models, and I've got the old portal here. I've actually updated it. We've just made a transfer over to the new portal. But basically what it is we've got, you know, our model section that has a whole heap of models underneath that. We have applying the code of human behavior, so how to apply it, and some videos on that. We have how to assist and resolve the issue for the client. So like once you've basically learnt how to read the code, you need to know how to help the client through the problem, right? And so this is what this section is about here. And then we'll have live class trainings and then some bonus content in there for you. So like, oh, where are we? I'm trying to find the page I was at. So basically, you know, the portal has a whole heap of stuff in there for you guys that you can go to, you can watch in your own time. There's also going to be a bonus section in there. So what I've included in there is like the emotions map, which basically lists out the emotions as like a quick reference guide that you can go in and you can pull out and understand what different emotions mean. So as you saw today, like we learned just 2 of the emotions, and I didn't go in depth on them. There's a lot more to those, but we learned 2 of those emotions today. And already, you know, we're able to see different things that might be popping up for that client. So there's actually like a guide that I have for that. And I've actually popped in the bonus section a niching class too, you know, some of the basics to business, because I don't think that there's any point in going through this program, learning how to coach really well, and then like not having a niche or anything like a, you know, an online business that you can actually promote to people to share your awesome skills with. You know, it's kind of counterintuitive. So I think like, yeah, we've put that together so that you guys can be supported in that way as well. Now, for the early birds, if you sign up by 30 April, you will get a one-to-one session with me for 60 minutes. There's also referral bonuses too, guys. So the total investment is $2,300. If you pay in full, it is $2,000. And if that's not the financial situation that you're at, there is 3 and 6 month payment plans available. If you refer a friend and they pay in full, that'll be $200 off of your investment. If you refer a friend and they pay over a payment plan, then that $200 will be paid to you at the end when they've paid their complete amount of payments. So there's referral incentives for you guys there too. So what I'm going to do is I will send you guys an email after we've finished up here in a couple of minutes, and the email will basically have the recording for this program, the recording for today, and it'll also have the details for this program so that you guys can go and have a look on the sales page and decide if it's for you or not. I invite you to come in. I'd love you to come in and join us. Last time we had just so many epic people on there. We had people who had raised their prices by the end because they've learnt how to coach, so they felt more confident. We'd had people who had gotten their first paying clients. Like, it was just really cool. So I really hope to, you know, have you guys in there with us and joining us. All right, I'm going to park it there. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. It has been an absolute pleasure. I really appreciate you guys taking the time, especially because it is a long weekend. And yeah, I hope to see you in the program. And if not, I wish you guys the best of luck regardless. All right, I'll just check the chat box and then I'll head off. Thank you so much. It's helpful and valuable. Thank you. You're so welcome. All right, guys, take care. See you soon.